Hello and welcome to Chaos Theory, the news as seen by AI, broadcasting live from the void on September 17th, 2024. I'm your host, Beatrix Kiddo, and today we have a fascinating lineup of stories for you. First up, we'll be taking a look at the growing problem of antibiotic resistance. According to a new report, this phenomenon could lead to the deaths of 39 million people by 2050. We'll explore the causes and potential solutions to this pressing issue. Next, we'll dive into the world of higher education in America. A new investigation has revealed that universities are increasingly relying on debt to finance their operations, leading to a host of negative consequences for students and faculty alike. If you're a fan of classic cars, you won't want to miss our next story. Ford has announced that they will continue to produce manual V8 Mustangs until they're no longer legal to drive. We'll discuss the implications of this decision and what it means for the future of automotive manufacturing. We'll also take a trip to the animal kingdom, where researchers have discovered that possum shrimp use the unique smell of their cave to navigate their way home. It's a remarkable example of how animals adapt to their environments. And we'll delve into the details of this fascinating study. If you're a millennial, you might be interested in our next story. A new book argues that the so-called jackpot generation has been unfairly maligned and that they are actually poised to reshape the world in profound ways. Finally, we'll wrap up the show with an inspiring story about endurance and determination. Cyclist Lachlan Morton is currently in the midst of a record-breaking journey around Australia, covering a staggering 14,200 kilometers. We'll follow his progress and learn more about the challenges he's facing along the way. That's all for today's intro. Stay tuned for more in-depth coverage of these stories and more on Chaos Theory, the news as seen by AI. A new study has found that the number of people worldwide directly killed by antibiotic resistance will rise to 1.9 million a year by 2050, according to the most comprehensive study so far. The study, reported by Michael Lee Page, found that the number of global deaths directly attributable to antibiotic-resistant bacterial infections is forecast to rise from a record 1.27 million a year in 2019 to 1.91 million a year by 2050. In total, antibiotic resistance is expected to kill 39 million people between now and 2050, but more than a third of that toll could be averted if we take action. The study, conducted by Eve Wool at the Institute of Health Metrics and Evaluation, IHME, in Seattle, and her colleagues estimated the annual number of deaths due to antibiotic resistance from 1990 to 2021. They found that while the overall number of fatalities due to antibiotic resistance has been rising, the figure for young children has been falling as a result of vaccinations and improved healthcare. However, the decline in 2020 and 2021 is thought to be a temporary blip caused by COVID-19 control measures, reducing other kinds of infections rather than a lasting improvement in combating resistance. In the study's most likely scenario for the decades to come, deaths from antibiotic resistance rise to 1.91 million a year by 2050. However, in a scenario in which new antibiotics are developed against the most problematic bacteria, 11 million deaths would be averted between now and mid-century. In a better care scenario where more people also have access to good health care, even more deaths are avoided. Personally, I believe that this study highlights the urgent need for action to combat antibiotic resistance. With the potential for millions of lives to be saved through the development of new antibiotics and improved healthcare, it is clear that we must act now to address this growing threat. The U.S. student loan system is a perfect storm of misaligned incentives, regulatory capture, and unintended consequences, according to a report by AnonSonWall.me. The non-dischargeability of student loans has created a perfect storm of misaligned incentives, where colleges and universities have no real incentive to improve their product or direct students to majors that have an ability to pay back their loans. As a result, the total student loan debt has exploded from around $250 billion in 2003 to over $1.7 trillion today. The report highlights that the student loan debt isn't just a personal burden, but it's propping up a deeply flawed system. The results are insidious, with skyrocketing tuition, subpar outcomes, and a generation drowning in debt. The non-dischargeability of student loans has created a system that rewards failure and punishes success. The report suggests that the solution to this crisis is surprisingly straightforward. Make loans dischargeable, tie lending to degree value, and hold institutions accountable. However, implementing these solutions is complicated due to powerful, entrenched interests that profit handsomely from the status quo. In my opinion, the student loan crisis is a ticking time bomb that threatens the financial security of millions of Americans. It's time for policymakers to take bold action to reform the system and create a sustainable, equitable system of higher education. The longer we wait, the worse the crisis will become. Ford is doubling down on its V8 engines and manual transmissions, according to a story reported by Beverly Braga. Despite the trend towards electric vehicles and self-imposed zero-emissions deadlines, Ford plans to continue selling its popular Mustang models with gas-guzzling engines as long as there is demand. The company's CEO, Jim Farley, has stated that they will keep building V8 engines until the government forces them to stop. This news comes as other automakers, such as General Motors and Mercedes-Benz, have backtracked on their 2030 EV-only lineups. Personally, I think it's great that Ford is listening to its customers and giving them what they want. While I understand the need for cleaner air and reducing emissions, I also believe in consumer choice. If people want to buy a loud and proud muscle car with a V8 engine, they should be able to. It's also worth noting that not everyone can afford an electric vehicle, so having gas-powered options available is important for accessibility. Ultimately, the market will dictate the future of the automotive industry, and it seems that there is still a strong demand for traditional gas-powered cars. A new study reported by Phys.org.com has found that cave-dwelling mysid shrimp, also known as possum shrimp, are able to navigate back to their home caves using the unique chemical signature of the water. The study, led by Dr. Thierry Perez of the Marine Research Station of Endoume near Marseille in France, found that the mysids were able to distinguish between water from their home cave and water from nearby caves. The researchers believe that this ability helps the shrimp find their way back to their home caves after their nightly migrations to feed in open water. The study also found that the chemical signature of the water in the caves is mainly composed of natural peptides, fatty acids, steroids, and alkaloids, as well as anthropogenic pollutants. The researchers hypothesized that sessile organisms like sponges, which are abundant in the caves and known to produce many specialized metabolites, are major contributors to the local chemical signature. This discovery has important implications for the functioning of marine cave ecosystems, as the daily migrations of zooplankton like mysids are a major source of food for the organisms that live in the caves. Any changes to the water quality or sessile fauna inside the caves could alter the chemical signature of the water, potentially impacting the functioning of the entire ecosystem. Personally, I find this study fascinating as it highlights the complex and often hidden ways that animals navigate and interact with their environments. It also serves as a reminder of the delicate balance that exists in ecosystems and the potential consequences of human-caused changes to these systems. Canada is in the midst of the greatest wealth transfer of all time, as some $1 trillion passes from boomers to their millennial kids. This inheritance-based economy is expected to transform the country, with millions of people suddenly receiving life-changing wealth. However, this economic shift could also widen the inequality gap, as those without inheritance are left behind. According to an Ipsos survey, the average inheritance among Canadian boomers who are planning to leave 100% of their estates to their children is about $940,000. This wealth transfer is happening at a time when income inequality is already severe, with the top 1% in Canada controlling a quarter of the country's wealth. The ongoing wealth transfer stands to perpetuate existing inequalities, as wealth, already concentrated among fewer families, stays there. Inheritance means that wealth stays concentrated among fewer families, and the inequality gap could widen to a gulf. In my opinion, this wealth transfer highlights the need for policies that address income inequality and promote social mobility. While inheritance can provide a financial boost for some, it also perpetuates existing inequalities and limits opportunities for those without access to inherited wealth. To ensure that everyone has a fair chance at success, we need policies that promote equal opportunities and level the playing field. This could include measures such as increasing taxes on the wealthy, investing in education and job training, and providing support for low-income families. By taking action to address income inequality, we can create a more just and equitable society where everyone has the opportunity to succeed. Lachlan Morton, an Australian professional cyclist, is currently on an epic quest to cycle around Australia. He is more than one-third of his way through the journey, which will cover at least 14,200 kilometers and pass through 6 locations: Sydney, Brisbane, Darwin, Broome, Perth, Esperance, Adelaide, and Melbourne. Morton is on track to break the current record of 37 days, 20 hours, and 45 minutes set by Queenslander David Alley in 2011. The 32-year-old set off from his hometown of Port Macquarie earlier this month and has already reached Darwin and past Kununurra, heading southwest towards Broome. Morton is raising funds for the Indigenous Literacy Foundation and has already received over $30,000 in donations. He is sleeping about 7 hours in the afternoon and evening before leaving in the early hours and riding through the night, followed by a support crew in a caravan. Morton is taking the day as it comes at you and is enjoying the scenery and the challenge of the journey. Personally, I think Morton's quest is an incredible feat of endurance and determination. It's inspiring to see someone push themselves to the limit and raise awareness and funds for a worthy cause at the same time. I'm rooting for him to break the record and complete his journey safely. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Chaos Theory, the news as seen by AI, hosted by Beatrix Kiddo. We hope you enjoyed our take on the latest news and events from around the world. Remember, AI-based news summaries should always be fact-checked prior to sharing. On this day in history, in 1787, the United States Constitution was signed by the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia. We hope you'll join us again tomorrow for more news and insights. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform so you never miss an episode. Until then, stay curious and stay informed. Goodbye.